aspect of it, and not just be caught in one pigeonhole into one aspect of the craft. And I think some people know how to do it and some people don't, right? And it all depends at the end of the day what you're trying to do. Like, what are you trying to get at it? At the end of the day, I want to be known as one of the best lyricists in the history of the world, you know? And what does it take for me to do that? You know, I don't necessarily need top line. The songs are really just delivery vehicles, you know, for the lyrics, where other people focus more so on like the songs, like the song has to be.
I mean, it'll be top line if that's what it calls for. You know, like you'll know that in a moment. You know what I mean? And that's part of what being a master is. I think the most successful artists, genius or not, are just the ones that are most self-aware. If you know what you are and exactly what you want to bring across, no matter what that is, if you have a clear understanding of what that is, then you're in a closer position to be able to say what your method should be, because, you know, like it's about finding your way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so the mumble rappers, you know, you said something about like the vocabulary. Like, the vocabulary may not even be an element that matters to them. As short-sighted as it probably is, and as much of a ceiling is probably there, there's some success there. They see it, and that's that. So I tell my youngins, whatever it is that you're going to be, as long as you know that that's what it is and you're going into it, you know what you're going to get out of that. You know, like if you want to, I had an argument with one of them. He was saying he's not going to make an album. I'm just going to do singles. Okay, cool. But don't turn around and say, oh man, I need my brand to be like this and that and that. Like, you have to make albums if you want to grow it. If you want to just be a singles rapper, that's cool too. You want to talk to me about streaming, but streaming is not really. What's your take on streaming, bro?
I remember when it was first cracking, and I had to sit down with Lior in a weird meeting. But it was like they had mentioned that music will slowly become a utility. Not even slowly, like, and I'm assuming at this time they were talking about Spotify was already probably cracking at a certain level. And I remember when Spotify first dropped, I remember having Spotify on my computer. Like, one of the homies was working for them and sent it to me. And it didn't have like a bunch of songs on there, but it was kind of like LimeWire or something weird. But anyway, this transition that the industry was doing into streaming was going to be the new thing, right? And it has some pluses and some minuses. It reset the value of what a song is, right? Dropped it down to almost pennies, refocused. It finished the job that Apple started. You know, I remember I went up to Apple and was talking with the homie up there who was running at the time. And I was like, man, y'all know y'all destroyed the album, right? You know, like, when you put the focus on the single, like, yeah, people are going to start making singles. You know, you set the conditions for that to occur. And then you just finish it off with streaming. Like, it's not even about owning it, right? It's not even about having it, you know, possessing it. It's just about having access. And it just becomes a utility like water. That was what Lior was saying. Like, it's going to become like water. And he was right, because he probably knew exactly that's what the program was. Because
it's a way to guarantee the labels a position.
I mean, to a degree. I don't think the labels had anything to do with it. I think it's more the nature of technology and the nature of the subscription model of business. You know, like, get people to pay for something over and over and over and over again. You drop the price, and you just get them to pay for it over and over and over again. And at the same time too, you're witnessing the entire industry of the music delivery. So television, movies, radio, all of these things are kind of, especially terrestrial radio, which is still a force, but it can't compete with streaming, right? To the point where streaming becomes the major source of where people go and get their music. Because you know, with Spotify, you don't have to worry about leaving Detroit, getting close to Grand Rapids, and then all the stations switch over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If you just focused on singles, then you kind of like, for all intents and purposes, just building basically whatever label you sign to.
And then the other part is the playlist culture. Playlist culture was a big deal, which is just an extension of mixtapes. Like, when you got a mixtape, you didn't want a mixtape wasn't about having 18 Jay-Z songs on there. You know, it was about having a verse from Dude, and here's this new track from Fabulous, and here's this new thing and that. So we've always had playlist culture. I think we've always had all the elements in one way or another. And something like Spotify or iTunes Music or Tidal or whatever, they just took all those elements, and the opportunity was right, the phones and everything hit at the right time, and it would just fit, and it fit the model, and it plugged in. And I don't think that is something that's going. I think there's another thing coming. You know, there's going to be another level up of it where I think you're going to find other things where it's not even about the music that the artist makes. It's about you being able to customize your artist's music, with or without them even being a part of the customization process. So I think that's what's next and what's being refined now, right? It's like, forget the artist and their intentions. Like, it's like, how can I get Beyonce to sing me happy birthday in Chinese, right? And the
Right.
only way to
Right.
do it is with tech. So
I feel like you remember we used to go to the record stores, we used to buy our shit. And when we went in there, we would have hip hop in one section, we would have our, I feel like with streaming, they're going, okay, we got young rap right here, we got lyrical rap right there, we got, you know what I mean? Like, they got everything kind of like broken down in categories, and then like the biggest playlists are like straight up marketed to a younger kids. So you can have a certain kind of listener that likes your music, and you will stream more just because of playlists that you land on due to criteria.
right, I think there's something to, like, people, and I've always said this: business first, music business second. You got to understand business to understand the music business, and the more you're in tune with just the regular life of regular business models, whether you're selling apple juice or you're selling joysticks or you're selling, music. Some people just are focused on the music business, and they don't really look at, well, how does this fit in with other business models on grander scales? And it's like, well, other grander scales, they're being disrupted. Everybody's switching to a subscription model. Everybody's focused on the young consumer. They're not focused on the older consumer. So we think like hip music is a legacy thing. Like, it's supposed to speak to the core of the industry is supposed to speak to everyone. And it's like, nah, they're focused on the youth. And it's like, why are they focused on the youth? Because most products which music generates its money from, if it's not from physical direct sales or concerts, the products that are around music, which actually give it its value through advertising, those they want to sell to kids who are 12 years old. They have a customer for the next like 40, 50 years, right? Like, they don't want to keep selling to a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, and it's like, yeah, like, I need that old thing back. And it's like, well, you're not really finna buy, or we already got you locked in, right? You're already gonna buy Coca-Cola and go to McDonald's and get insurance and do this and do that. But we got this new generation who we need to start turning into a customer. So all of the forces, music isn't separated from that process. If they see music that's catering to an audience, then they're gonna focus all of their energies onto that. And some people get upset about that, or maybe some people can't even see that that's the play, right? But I think it takes the agile artist to recognize that fact and be like, okay, how can I be Tony Bennett now? How can I be Frank Sinatra right now? How can I still be in my older set, but still make songs and make music that is still relative to the youth, no matter what, right? So I can still, have some type of validity and relevance to, this newer generation. So I think artists that are just kind of stuck in that mold of, bring that old thing back, let me just cater to my generation. I think they get have a rough time, and even rougher what's coming around the bend. But
Do you make music? You make music based off of what's current?
for sure,
Really?
absolutely. Um, but I don't look at myself as being monolithic. Like you said, I look at myself as being layered. So I made an album called Drogas Light, which for multiple reasons. It was the last record with the label. I didn't want to give them anything that I put my heart and soul into, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it was kind of like, if we got this blank slate, let's dip into some trap. You know, it's legitimate. The content is legitimate. It's just that let's play around in this context. And can you actually do it? Can you jump on there and go way dumb, but still keep a certain edge to it, or dress it up in a certain contextual or conceptual envelope, where it still comes across as satisfying in what you're doing. And it may not be for You know, you go on stage and you rapping, or you go to a concert, you know, and the DJ, his set liver than your set, right? Because he's playing all of the current thing and the crowd going crazy, and he's still your fans. You know, they still like bars and lyrics, but they also like to jump up and down and do other stuff. And it was kind of like, yeah, look, why not? You know, so I've always been one to make. If you listen to any of my albums, they're always gonna have a little bit for everybody. You know, I think that's as masters in the craft, that's something that we should at least have a mastery of. You know, that's one element that I think we should actually do. Do you?
No,
Interesting. I didn't think you
I
did.
don't. I don't. I'm not an employee of the people.
Let me write that down.
I'm not an employee of the people.
I
I'm
know.
not here.
Why? Why? What's your cost benefit analysis on that front, brother?
Well, I mean, I learned a lot. I'm learning a lot about myself through the art,
Mm,
and I'm finding that being able to express myself is it's a coping mechanism for me.
mm,
You know, so like it's therapeutic just for me to be able to create, and I need freedom to be able to do so. And I just feel like to blend in with what's going on, you know, like to use certain elements to do that. That's it's kind of like you're subscribing to be the camouflage. You're subscribing to be the same color. You know what I mean? Like I look at art like you put it on the canvas and you hang it up and you invite people in. You don't splash paint on it and then follow people around trying to get them to take it. No, like it's a place. Creativity to me is a place. Like it's a place you need to arrive to. Like you can't be searching. You can't be like shape shifting. You know, like if you want to do a Metro Boomin beat, it should be because you really like a Metro Boomin beat. Because ultimately, whatever you feel is what's gonna come out the best. If you
mm-hmm,
go and you start aiming and you start telling yourself, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, then it's gonna turn like people can hear that. People
mm-hmm,
can hear that. Like you hear great songs from artists, and then you can always hear when they try to recreate that moment. And we never like it because it's forced. I
mm-hmm,
don't like to force art. I don't like to use a whole lot of thought, and I don't like to abide by rules because I feel like rules are created by people who don't create. They work at labels. They need to figure out a way to wrap their brain around things, so they start creating anecdotal facts. Oh man, you know, people's attention span or bro, people hyper focus on anything they like.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they don't have to pay attention to you, so they'll move along faster. You know, but the concept of making albums and building brands off making that album, regardless of where technology goes, that's always going to be a thing. If you make a classic album, that's a classic album. That's something that's lasts. And you can't make a classic album, create something that's going to blend in. Nothing that we've ever seen special, including your classics, was
Yes.
like anything that was out around it at that time. Now, what the impact that it had on the culture makes it to where you can speak about it in any generation, which makes it relevant. But that term relevant is not a term that should be in anybody's head when they create music.
My piece is
That's just my theory.
yeah. Um, in the sense where I was raised in form, right? So whenever I addressed or approached a say a genre, if we want to say genres of music, um, I always looked at that genre as its own creative space, right? And there were certain rules and rule sets to that space, but there was multiple spaces. If you chose to just jump into one space and stay there, that's one thing. But if you chose to operate in as many spaces as possible, that's another thing. So I was raised to a degree. It was like half and half. I got my first deal when I was like 19, you know? So it was kind of like I was only seriously rapping when I was 17. So you get 2 years of the backpack, of the bars, the crew, the this, that, and the third, the hip hop, the, you know, cipher and blah, 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 blah. And then you right into, now you have to make music for the industry, right? You have to make music for audience. You have to make music to certain forms and certain parameters. And I actually think that it made me a better MC. And if the proof is in the pudding, you know, look at the career and the things that I can create and the things that I can do. And there's a certain level of versatility that you gain from. So, for instance, I didn't used to write to beats, right? So my
Mm-hmm.
first raps weren't to beats, like literally not to a beat at all, not even to a metronome. It was literally like I enjoy words, and my first rap notebooks were all just lists of words. It wasn't bars, it wasn't even metaphors. It was just words. I would go to Walgreens, and I would just look at the magazine cover, and I would just take all the words off and go home and put them in a rap, right? And it was just this block of text, right? And you could rap it, but it would just be this blocks of bars and interesting words and stuff. But it was not to a beat at all. And when it came time to be like, you know what, put the studio together, let's get some instrumentals, let's make some music at that point. Go from raps to just making music. And none of the verses fit. None of them. I had to like slow down this part, take this part out, do this, do that. It was just super freeform, wild, and fit to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And my first commercial experience was I was in high school, and we had a radio station at our high school, but it only broadcast in the school and then maybe a little bit outside the school, right? It wasn't like a actual big radio station, but we had a studio, the whole thing. And the brother who had the radio, he had a radio show that he would do, I think like after school was out, but it was still people kind of in school, maybe doing after classes or detention or whatever. And they would play it over the speaker system in the school, right? The announcement system.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could turn it on or something like that. And he wanted us to do and it's me and my crew, he wanted us to do basically an intro for his show,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this was like one of the first times that I actually wrote to a beat.
Mm-hmm.
And when I jumped into that form, because now you locked in, it has to be on beat. It has to have a certain, it provided me with so much freedom. And it was a corner turner in my career as an MC in the craft, because all I needed was like 4 bars of like really nice. I didn't need all in words. I didn't need 38 words, right? I just needed 4. And from that 4, I was able to build my 16. And the 16 was nice, right? It was like VC to the third power, radio jingles, the singles we mingle with the fly B at the third hour. It was like, what? Like, oh, snap. Like that's pretty cool, right? It's pretty good. And from that, it became like jumping into a form gave me longevity, because it was like, yo, all I need is 14 words, and like maybe the metaphors are going to come, the similes are going to come, but I wouldn't have experienced that if I wasn't jumped into a form, right? If I
Yeah.
didn't.
So you basically saying you kept striving to get better. You kept striving to get better, and I'm kind of saying the same thing as you. I'm just not thinking about the fans,
Right,
because I
but
always try.
have to do a job. It was like, here's a dude requesting something that maybe not
Oh yeah,
specific the thing,
yeah.
but
I had to write all the jingles and shit too.
yeah.
I I I always strive to get better, because like I'm not satisfied with like just being able to rap. I feel like there's a such thing as a perfect verse. There's a such thing as a lyrical verse. There's such thing. Dre's G Thing verse is a perfect verse. It's not super lyrical. It's just no other verse could even fit there.
Mm.
And I think that's amazing that somebody can do that, just thinking of the right thing to say and the right way to say it. So I feel like expression can come out in any way. There should be no limit, but it should never be, this is what I think that they would like. Because we have a lot of powers that we kind of overlook. We gotta use our power and tell them what they like. And we gotta make them choose. Like don't the worst place you could be to me is like you play your song and it can just exist. Like they don't hate it, they don't love it. That's worse than them hating it.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
Make them choose, make them uncomfortable. Like my last album, I wanted them to be uncomfortable. I wanted people to think, and the fulfillment just was in completion. It was in producing it. It's like I just feel like it's not really about me being a thing more than it is about me being able to use my platform and doing whatever makes me happy. You know, because when I'm working in that capacity, money loves me. Money just chases me. You know what I'm saying? But when I'm chasing money and I'm making decisions based off of what I think that people think that they want, I'm not good at filling that order because there's so much going on with me that I'm learning. So I need to be able to express it how I feel when I feel, but I'm always trying to evolve. I'm never going, yo, I'm not singing on no song, or I wouldn't rap over no trap beat. I'll rap over a trap beat if it's a good trap beat. I'm not rapping over no trap beat just because niggas think they like trap beats.
Right.
If I don't like the trap beat. And I'm not gonna pretend to like something. I'm not gonna be like, I'm not going to the trap party. You know what I mean? Like I just keep listening to lyricists. You know, people can be like, he's old, but one thing's for certain, I'm gonna always be here. Always.
There's some longevity to focusing on the lyrical side, and that's why I think it's a great career choice to make, to focus on lyrics in that capacity, because at the end of the day, it is just the power of words, and language isn't going nowhere, and words nowhere. Even if songs go away and music goes away, words and language will always be here. I think there's something to, you know, being as versatile as possible. I do think that there's something to service and form. And I do think there's something to being aware of the market forces and what people, like you said, people tell people what they like. Like you would think that people, you know, what you would think a fan might like, hates what you think it. You learn those lessons the hard way. You know, it isn't just it's from trial and error. Like, you know, I tried this, people hated it, so it's like
that's me 100%.
But the flip side of that is, you get a gold record, right? And then it becomes the record that is that pivotal piece, that classic isn't gold at all, right? And probably will never go gold. But the record that everybody hated is one of the top sellers. And so it becomes, when you're doing the industry side of it, and this is one thing to be in it for the culture and just for the craft. It's another thing to walk the line of the industry line as well. And in that industrial side of it, I mean, from my point of view, if you're going to do it, if you're in it or you got the opportunity to be in it, embrace it fully. And I see a lot of artists who fight that. And they want to kind of impose or superimpose. It's almost like the reverse, right? What you actually have, your own creative expression, maybe because it's not necessarily refined, or it's too much in your ego. And I don't see especially folks of your caliber operating that ego. But people who do, they assume, or they're lost in thinking that what they do naturally without catering to an audience is what people want, and they don't. And then they'll get something that is completely prefabricated for them, or they jump into a prefabricated form, and then people love it. And that's a weird place to be. And I've experienced it, you know, in every capacity. You know, songs that I don't even like, that are like super crazy successful, that people love, and it's like, I hate it.
Me too.
Right?
I did Lighters.
Where people
Lighters was a huge song. It was the number one. It was the number one song. It was huge. It was considered a hit. And my thing about those songs, I have no problem doing them. They're fun to do when it's the right time, knowing when to do what. The key is just being familiar. It's about knowing who you are. Black Thought is the perfect example. Like his success will never be marketed to you. Like the people, like the companies that spend money to control the narrative, they don't speak about people like Black Thought, but he's way more successful than everybody you see. And a large part of the reason is because that's what he is, and he does that. So he uses his platform things that interest him, and he does all of those things well, and he's super successful.
Royce is freezing the Wi-Fi over at Heaven Studios in Detroit is yeah, it froze. Royce had router issues. Interesting. Now I've talked to 2 members. Now I have to talk to Crooked. I have to talk to Crooked now because I didn't talk to Joe randomly, talk to Royce randomly. Now I got to talk to Crooked. Crooked's like, come on in the show, man. I'm like, no, Crooked, I ain't got nothing to say. Now that I talked to 2 of the 3 of the 4, 2 of the 4 members of Slaughterhouse, I have to talk to Crooked now. Royce, if you want to jump back in, let me know. You kind of blanked out to finish your thought, but if not, I understand, brother. Don't want to ramble, take up too much of your time. Shout out to Royce the 5'9". Boom, 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 boom. Interesting points of view. Do 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 boo do 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 boo boo boo. Interesting. Told Royce he used to join Sosa. These dudes be fronting B. They be fronting B. We talk about this at Sosa all